Hi, everybody, and welcome to Week 3 of our Pac-12 preview, along with the UCLA Hall of Famer J.J. Stokes. Roxy Bernstein with you. Before we look forward, let's take a look back at Week 2, a sensational weekend. The Pac-12 football featured a historic game. It was the inaugural game in the Pac-12 Conference. USC hosting Utah in the game Saturday night at the LA Coliseum, and a thriller, JJ. What a fantastic football game.
It was exciting for several reasons. Norm Chow comes back to USC, gets an opportunity to take his new team into his old stomping grounds and try to get a victory. And ultimately it came down to the end, but the running game of Mark Tyler and the passing game with Robert Woods was a little too much for Utah.
Well, some other games of importance in the Week 2 of the Pac-12, and it started Thursday night, Arizona suffered a tough setback against one of the top 10 teams in the country, Oklahoma State. But Friday night, a terrific ball game down in Tempe, Arizona, as the Arizona State Sun Devils outlast Missouri in overtime. Just a sensational effort by Arizona State. What stood out to you about the Sun Devils?
You know, the play of Brock Osweiler really stood out, and I say that for several reasons. I mean, the guy ran a touchdown, had several throwing touchdowns, and to go back and forth to gain a lead and then allow Missouri to come back in and have an opportunity to tie it. I mean, you were on the edge of your seat the entire game. Ultimately, ASU was a little too strong and had too much firepower for the Missouri team.
Well, there was some other action in the conference that really had people on the edge of their seat. Overtime in Boulder, the non-conference game among two conference opponents where Cal outlasts Colorado in overtime.
You know, at time and time again, I never cease to be amazed by what Cal does. And Zach Maynard comes out, and every week you say, can he get better? Can he get it done? It's always in question, but he always steps up and he makes the plays necessary for this Cal team to get a victory. You have to take your hat off to that type of effort.
Anything else stand out at you from the second week of conference action?
You know, one game that stood out, and I really enjoy seeing Washington State and Paul Wolf-led team getting it done. They are putting so many points offensively that, I mean, it's amazing the amount of points that they're putting on the board.
They lead the country in scoring right now after 2 weeks after a big win Week 1. They crushed UNLV. Are they for real?
They most definitely are for real. They have a new quarterback, Marshall Lovestall, and he comes in and he takes full advantage of his opportunity. He's a fifth-year senior, so he has a ton of experience. He throws for 315 yards, and this team doesn't miss a beat with Jeff Toole out.
Let's shift forward to Week 3, as plenty of big tilts on tap this week for the conference. Let's start, JJ, at the Rose Bowl, as UCLA hosts number 21 Texas in a ball game where Texas is probably thinking about revenge after UCLA handed to them pretty good last year in Austin. The Longhorns 2-0 coming off a win against BYU. They squeaked one out in Austin. While you have UCLA off a win, they beat San Jose State. Can they take some confidence away from that victory against the Spartans?
They most definitely can take some confidence away, and they must take some confidence away in order to beat the Texas Longhorns. You have to look at the matchups in this particular game. You have Patton Kelly, offensive tackle for Texas. He's a sophomore going against Dayton Jones. I think that's a key matchup that we need to look forward to, because Dayton is a guy that UCLA is looking for to come out and be their sack master. I think that's one key matchup. And then the other matchup that you need to take a look at is the size difference when it comes to UCLA's receivers and Texas defensive backs. I think at some point in this game, these guys are going to have to step up to the forefront and be a huge part of this UCLA offense. I think those are some keys that can help UCLA over Texas.
Also on tap this week on ABC, 12:30 Pacific, you have Washington 2-0. They're going into Big Ten country. They're taking on Nebraska. This is the third time these teams have met in about a span of a year. The Huskers won in Seattle last year, then the Huskies winning the bowl game down at the Holiday Bowl in San Diego. So here is the rubber game, essentially, of a three-game series between Nebraska and Washington. The Huskies at 2-0, going on the road. What do you see in this one?
You know, this one's going to be an interesting matchup. You have Keith Price last week come in for Washington and have an outstanding game through the air. But in addition, I think it's going to have to come to the running game, a strength of the Cornhuskers. But at the same time, Chris Polk is going to have to step up and get some great rushing yards to keep this game moving forward.
Well, another big out-of-conference matchup, JJ, for the Arizona State Sun Devils as Dennis Erickson's team goes to Champaign, Illinois. 18th ranked now. ASU takes on 2-0 Illinois in a game that'll be seen at 4 o'clock Pacific time on the Big Ten Network. But Arizona State, can they go to 3-0?
Yes, they absolutely can. For this, the game is going to take balance by ASU. I think we know what Brock Osweiler and Aaron Pflugar can do in the air, but it comes down to Cameron Marshall. Can he get it done? With this Illinois defense, a defense that's sound up front, They need to pound the football in order to keep them honest.
Well, a big matchup at the LA Coliseum Saturday night, 5 o'clock Pacific on FX, is a battle of two 2-0 teams. USC hosting Syracuse, and J.J. the Trojans trying to keep it going, and they got a running game last week going against Utah with Mark Tyler.
They absolutely did. Mark Tyler came in, rushed for over 100 yards, did a fantastic job. We know he is a threat, but we also know that Robert Woods is a threat in the air. But it's up to Matt Barkley to get those guys the ball. I think if he can do that, they can be successful. And on the other side of the ball, you have Nick Perry, who is a standout in my eyes, and then you have McDonald. I played with his dad, Tim McDonald, in the secondary for USC. I think those two guys are key elements for this USC defense.
Also going Saturday night, the Battle of the Beehive State, the in-state rivals there as Utah visits BYU, a game in Provo, seen on ESPN2. And Utah's trying to bounce back, JJ, against an independent now team in BYU. Utah, you think they'll bounce back?
I think Utah will bounce back. You look at last week's game that they played, they were sound in their assignments. They just came up short. I think Norm Chow is going to take this offense back to the drawing board and have Jordan Wynn prepared to go out and win this game through the air. You look at Devontae Christopher, receiver, had 11 catches for 138 yards, and Drees Anderson, two guys in the passing game that can get it done for this Utah team.
Final game we'll take a look at, and certainly not least this weekend, is the lone conference game as number 6 Stanford visits Arizona, 7:45 kick on ESPN, Saturday night from Arizona Stadium in Tucson. And the Wildcats trying to bounce back after a tough loss at Oklahoma State last week, JJ. Stanford 2-0, and it's not just Andrew Luck. This is a completely balanced football team that Arizona is going to have their hands full with.
That's what makes it so hard. They run the ball well, they throw the ball well. But if you're the Arizona Wildcat defense, you have to take one of those options away. For me, I would take away the passing game. Try to double cover Fleener, the tight end, and Owusu, be physical with him at the line of scrimmage.
Well, first-year coach David Shaw, the Stanford Cardinals, looking forward to this matchup with Arizona.
Arizona's got a lot of athletes. They've got a lot of guys that can make plays. They're missing their top receiving threat, and yet they're still quarterbacks, still threw for over 400 yards. I mean, it's just a good group of athletes that are well coached that can make plays on any given Saturday.
That's our Week 3 preview for the Pac-12 Conference, as plenty of good football coming your way this weekend involving the Pac-12. So for J.J. Stokes, Roxy Bernstein, thank you for joining us. Reminder, you can catch us to the national radio broadcast of UCLA hosting Texas on Touchdown Radio, along with the 92 Heisman Trophy winner, Gino Torretta. Thanks for tuning in to Week 3 and our Pac-12 preview.